There are days when even simple things feel impossible. Getting out of bed, the laundry waiting on the chair, the mug in the sink, the project you once cared about. They all sit there, staring back at you. Your body feels like a car that has run out of fuel in the middle of the highway. And the weird part is that you can't even remember when you ran empty. And then the thoughts start. Why can't I just do things like everyone else? Maybe I'm just not built for this world. Maybe something in me is wrong. From the outside, it looks like no energy. From the inside, it feels like a fog slowly thickening over your life. But what if this isn't a random crash? Carl Jung spent years in this kind of inner collapse. In his Red Book, he describes being seized by a force that pulled him away from the spirit of the times, all the outer roles and expectations, and down into the spirit of the depths. In that descent, his usual motivation stopped working. The man who once worked like a machine found himself wrestling with dreams, symbols, and a strange new demand from his own soul. You might be closer to that than you think. In this video, we're exploring what it can mean when you have no energy to do anything. Not as a diagnosis, not as a label, but as a spiritual, psychological message. Through Jung's lens, your exhaustion isn't just about hormones, to-do lists, or not trying hard enough. It can be your soul changing the contract. There are three big messages that tend to hide inside this kind of collapse. The first, your engine burned out on the wrong road. Think of your life like a car journey. For years, you've been driving on a certain highway, chasing approval, success, love, safety, and belonging. You followed the signs the world gave you. Be productive, be needed, be impressive, and don't be a disappointment. You said yes when your inner voice whispered no. You stayed where your body felt tense. You worked for goals that never felt like yours, but looked good in other people's eyes. You kept pushing because stopping felt dangerous. On the surface, it looked like you were doing well. Inside, something else was happening. Your engine was overheating. Jung described this as the psyche withdrawing energy from a path that no longer serves the self. The more your life drifted away from your inner truth, the more your deeper center began to sabotage the journey. It refuses to fuel a life that betrays you. So your no energy might not mean you're incapable. It might mean that you cannot keep spending your life force in this direction. Your engine was burnt out on the road to the wrong places, wrong tasks, wrong people, wrong versions of you. On the road to jobs that use your talent but ignore your soul. To relationships where you perform a role but never feel seen or safe. To routines that make you look stable while you quietly disappear from yourself. At some point, the system inside you makes a decision. No more fuel for this. That's when you start waking up with nothing in the tank. You try to restart the same habits, the same grind, the same goals, and your body refuses to cooperate. You judge yourself. You call it procrastination, lack of willpower, and failure. But seen through Jung's lens, this is meaningful sabotage. Your soul is slamming the brakes because you won't. In the Red Book, Jung writes about how the fantasies, images, and inner figures he met felt like invaders at first, as if they were wrecking his respectable life. Only later did he understand. They were trying to save him from a life lived only for the outer world. Your exhaustion can be like that. A brutal, inconvenient rescue. So, if you feel like you can't do it anymore, maybe the question isn't, how do I force myself to keep going? Maybe the question is, what part of me is done pretending this road is mine? There's another piece to this no energy story that goes even deeper. Sometimes it's not just that you're driving in the wrong direction, it's that there's a war happening inside the car. The second message, your energy is trapped in an inner war you never consented to. From a Jungian perspective, your soul isn't just a soft, vague feeling. It's a whole inner ecosystem: instincts, values, wounds, longings, symbols, and archetypes. When parts of that ecosystem are rejected or denied, they don't disappear. They go underground. That underground territory is what Jung called the shadow. The shadow holds everything you pushed away to survive. The anger you weren't allowed to feel, the needs that got shamed, the sensitivity people mocked, the creativity that didn't seem practical, the weirdness that didn't fit into your family or culture. On the surface, you look like you're functioning. You're polite, agreeable, responsible, and fine. But underneath, you're running a gigantic power plant just to keep those exiled parts locked away. That takes energy, a lot. Jung saw this directly in his own inner work. When he turned inward during the years of the Red Book, he wasn't greeted by peace. He met wild figures, gods, prophets, children, serpents, living images that carried everything his nice, educated persona had pushed aside. He realized that the more he tried to control and edit his inner world, the more violent and exhausting it became. Imagine your psyche like a house. On one floor, you're trying to work, be productive, hold your life together. In the basement, there's a crowd of forgotten guests pounding on the door. You tell yourself, "I'm just tired." But actually, most of your life force is downstairs, holding that door shut. That's why you can sit on a couch for hours and feel like you've run a marathon. Not because you did nothing, but because you've been wrestling with yourself the entire time. Self-judgment is one of the biggest energy thieves here. Every time you think, "I shouldn't feel this. I shouldn't want that. I should be stronger by now. I should be over this." You're splitting yourself in two. One part of you feels something real. Another part attacks it. That inner conflict burns fuel, like pressing the gas and brake at the same time. Your soul's message inside this exhaustion can be painfully simple. I will not power a life where I am the enemy. In other words, your energy is not gone. It's tied up in holding back tears you never cried, hiding anger you're terrified to express, pretending you don't care when something hurts, and performing a role that keeps you acceptable but never authentic. Jung noticed that what we reject in ourselves doesn't just sit in the dark. It turns into complexes, emotional knots that hijack our energy, moods, and behavior. You might notice this when a small thing triggers a huge reaction, or when you replay an interaction 100 times in your mind. That's life force, too, just pulled sideways. So when you say, "I have no energy to do anything," it might be more accurate to say, "All my energy is busy defending a version of me that doesn't feel true." Your soul is trying to pull that energy back from the war. It wants those exiled parts to return home. It wants your anger to become boundaries, your grief to become depth, your sensitivity to become intuition, your strangeness to become creative power. That can't happen while you're still using all your strength to pretend those parts aren't there. So the deeper message inside your exhaustion might be, stop fighting yourself. I'm ready to give you energy again, but not for this inner battlefield. So, if your engine burned out on the wrong highway, and if a huge chunk of your strength has been trapped in an inner war, there's one more message, and this one is not about what's wrong. It's about what's trying to be born. Third message, your soul is switching you from survival energy to soul energy. Most of us learn to move through life on one kind of fuel, pressure. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of being left behind. Add to that the sugar rush of achievement, the little high when someone praises you, the relief when you meet a deadline, the rush when a goal is ticked off. That cocktail can push a person very far. It can build careers, families, brands, and reputations. But underneath, that is survival energy. It keeps you running, but it doesn't necessarily keep you real. Jung saw this in his own life before his inner collapse. On the outside, he was a respected doctor, professor, and researcher. On the inside, something in him knew. This cannot be the end of the story. In the Red Book, he describes how life began to reorient him toward images, dreams, and symbols. Away from success as the world defined it, and toward meaning as his soul required it. When you say, "I have no energy anymore," there is a chance that this old fuel is simply not available. Your soul may be cutting the power to anything driven by fear, image, or emptiness. It's like your inner self is saying, "I won't lend you strength to keep abandoning yourself. If you want energy from me, we do this differently now." So you try to push yourself with guilt and shame. I should get up. I should be productive. I should be further along by now. And nothing moves. That doesn't mean your soul has abandoned you. It means it is refusing to cooperate with the same old tactics. Here's the strange part. While you feel dead inside about the things you think you should care about, there are tiny places where energy still flickers. Maybe you light up for a certain topic, even if it seems useless or unprofitable. Maybe a half-forgotten dream keeps returning. Maybe your body relaxes around some people and tightens around others. Maybe you sense an urge to create something small, a piece of writing, a drawing, a song, a conversation, that has no obvious payoff. These are not random. They're like the first sparks of a different current, soul energy. Jung called this orientation the symbolic life, living from an inner center that speaks through images, impressions, synchronicities, and deep knowing rather than external rules alone. In that mode, decisions are not made just from "what will this get me?" but from what feels true, alive, and meaningful, even if no one else understands. Your exhaustion can be the crossover point between these two modes. The old adrenaline-based engine is gone. The new engine hasn't fully come online. No wonder you feel like you're stalled on the side of the road. The invitation here isn't to suddenly redesign your entire existence. It's to start noticing where your remaining energy wants to go when you're not bullying it. You might notice that you can't force yourself to care about certain ambitions anymore, no matter how logical they seem. That you still somehow find strength for a deep conversation, a creative act, an honest journal page. And that you feel strangely drawn to subjects like depth psychology, spirituality, myth, art, healing, nature, anything that touches the mystery of being alive. This is your soul reshaping your motivational system. From "I move so I don't fail" to "I move where something in me says yes." In time, this can create a very different kind of life. Not one without responsibility or structure, but one where structure grows from meaning, not the other way around. Where your calendar slowly begins to reflect who you are, not who you tried to be. You will still get tired. You will still have days of fog. You are human. But underneath, there is less sense of inner betrayal and more sense of, "I may be exhausted, but at least I am tired on a path that feels real." So when you have no energy to do anything, your soul might be saying three things at once. I am done fueling the wrong road. I am done fighting myself. I am ready to move you with a different kind of power, but only where truth lives. If any part of this felt uncomfortably familiar, it means something in you is ready to be seen. Share in the comments. What is one thing your soul feels done fueling, and one tiny thing that still gives you a quiet yes? If you'd like more videos that speak to this deeper layer of psychology and soul, make sure to subscribe to Fractal Wisdom. And always remember, you're not falling apart, you're slowly falling back into yourself.